that this must be recognised, and I think detachment is something the public find very hard to understand.
Thank you. Thank you both very much. And that ends the news tonight and Falklands.
Argentina goes back to the United Nations. The Secretary-General says it's make or break day. And Britain's ambassador says things are moving. The Sheffield survivors are coming home as soon as arrangements can be made. And the crash that killed Grand Prix driver Gilles Villeneuve. Good evening. In the search for a peaceful solution to the Falklands conflict, there's a flicker of hope from New York tonight. No more fighting has been reported from the South Atlantic, and the diplomatic activity has centred on the United Nations. Sir Anthony Parsons, the British ambassador to the UN, said negotiations are on the move. Earlier, the UN Secretary-General, Mr. Pérez de Cuéllar, said it could be a make-or-break day in the separate talks he's been having with both sides. He's had one session with Sir Anthony and no fewer than 3 with the Argentine Deputy Foreign Minister. From New York, Michael Cole reports on the day's activities.
Argentina's Deputy Foreign Minister, Enrique Ross, left promptly for his second session with the United Nations Secretary-General, as Mr. Pérez de Cuéllar was warning that today could make or break his peace initiative.
I hope that today we are having, a real progress, or at least, we'll know whether, there are reasons for hope.
Enrique Ross, the top civil servant in the Argentine Foreign Ministry, explained to the Secretary-General Argentina's doubts about Britain's sincerity to negotiate a solution, while at the same time tightening the military cordon on the Falklands. Britain's ambassador, Sir Anthony Parsons, went in next, and afterwards I asked him if he considered there had been useful progress.
We are moving. The negotiations are on the move. I think it's too early to say, to predict what the result is likely to be. But we are on the move with a sense of great urgency, and I think that is demonstrated by the fact that I've already seen the Secretary-General once today, and so has the Deputy Foreign Minister of Argentina, and that I anticipate that both of us will be seeing him again today.
So, some progress and no breakdown yet. The Secretary-General believes that of itself, Britain's extension of the total exclusion zone does not jeopardize his peace initiative. But were there to be a major British attack, Argentina would almost certainly feel obliged to break off the tentative contacts here and close down the only remaining diplomatic channel between itself and Great Britain.
The Argentine Deputy Foreign Minister was non-committal when he left the UN a few minutes ago after his third meeting with the Secretary-General. He said, "We are working hard. We will meet again tomorrow." Mrs. Thatcher is spending the weekend at Chequers. At the moment, she has no plans to hold a meeting of her inner cabinet. Meanwhile, the Foreign Secretary, Mr. Pym, has gone to Belgium to ask other common market foreign ministers to extend their ban on Argentine imports when the present embargo runs out in 9 days' time. The private meeting is taking place in an 18th century chateau. Several countries, notably Ireland, West Germany and Italy, are known to be reluctant to grant an extension. And tonight the Dutch Foreign Minister was reported as saying that further support would depend on Britain's restraint in the use of military force. The survivors from the destroyer HMS Sheffield are to be brought home from the South Atlantic as soon as it can be arranged. The announcement about their return came at a Ministry of Defence news conference.
Survivors from HMS Sheffield are presently embarked in other ships of the task force. They will be brought home to the United Kingdom as soon as opportunities arise and reunited with their families. Timing, however, cannot yet be confirmed. All survivors will be given leave on arrival in the UK, and during the return journey, they will be asked about their preferences for future appointments. On completion of their leave, they will return to their base port depots for kitting out before proceeding to their next appointments and drafts.
The Ministry of Defence said tonight that they have no reports of any military action around the Falklands today. Earlier, the ministry had said that the task force is continuing its patrols to maintain the now greatly enlarged exclusion zone. Conditions in the area are difficult, with fog, extensive cloud cover and poor visibility. The ministry has also today given details of the growing role of Ascension Island, the small British dependency in the middle of the Atlantic, which is being used as a vital staging and supply post for the task force. Official ministry photographs show men from the Royal Marines and from the 3rd Battalion, the Parachute Regiment, carrying out live firing practice on the island, while some idea of the scale of the air operation is given in this photograph of a line of Victor tanker aircraft at the island's airfield. Nearby are parked the huge RAF Hercules transport planes. It's also been disclosed that RAF Harrier jets have flown non-stop from Britain to Ascension Island, refuelling in mid-air. It was a 9-hour non-stop flight, which is a new record for the Harrier. And it's reported that HMS Exeter, a sister ship of HMS Sheffield, is to join the task force. That name, HMS Exeter, recalls a previous naval engagement in the South Atlantic. In 1939, an earlier HMS Exeter was involved in the Battle of the River Plate, which ended with the scuttling of the German battleship Graf Spee. The Defence Ministry has given details about how relatives and friends of people with the fleet can write to them. A special British Forces post office number has been given. Letters should be addressed with the name of the sailor, soldier or marine, his ship or his regiment, and then British Forces Post Office 666, BFPO 666. The ministry says it's hoped that all letters will get through in less than 2 weeks' time. Reports from Geneva tonight are giving some indication of what happened to the 190 Argentines, mostly soldiers and sailors, who were taken prisoner when British forces retook South Georgia. 3 Red Cross delegates are being flown to Ascension Island, from where they will be taken to ships at sea to interview the Argentines. The Red Cross delegates will talk to them privately before the Argentines are transferred to neutral ships for repatriation.
In Argentina, the military rulers say they've been sending more troops to strengthen their coastal defences after Britain's widening of the war zone. The newspapers are full of condemnation of Britain. The captain of the General Belgrano, the cruiser sunk by 2 British torpedoes, has been giving his account of what happened. From Buenos Aires, Christopher Morris reports.
The captain claimed the cruiser was well outside Britain's 200-mile exclusion zone when the submarine attacked.
A ningún buque de la Armada Inglesa.
Captain Bonzo gave a graphic account of how 2 torpedoes struck the warship, one exploding in the engine room. The decks, he said, became red hot. 2 decks collapsed, killing and trapping crew members resting below. But others did not survive the battles at sea. 8 crew members of another Argentine warship attacked last Monday were killed. According to the military junta, they died when their patrol vessel was hit by enemy fire while searching for an Air Force pilot shot down and believed to be adrift in the South Atlantic. The attack was said to have been 90 miles inside the exclusion zone around the Falkland Islands, though Britain has claimed the Argentine craft opened fire on a patrolling Sea King anti-submarine helicopter. But for the young widow of Marine Guardsman Claudia Oliveri, these were arguments lost in the emotional outbursts at the funeral of an Argentine who died for his country.
Today's other stories. In the Gulf War, the Iranians say they've inflicted a major defeat on the Iraqis, pushing them back over the border in southwest Iran on a 20-mile front between the port of Khorramshahr and Awaz. It's a claim denied by the Iraqis, but Iranian television has been showing pictures of the area they say their troops recaptured. If it's true that they've taken this 20-mile stretch, then it's the first time since the war began 19 months ago that Iranian forces have reached this Iraqi frontier. It brings Iran much nearer her goal of recapturing the major port of Khorramshahr. But the Iraqis deny suffering any defeat. The Iraqi front line, they say, has fought off enemy attacks and inflicted heavy losses on Iranian troops. They concede that 2 groups of their forces have been withdrawn, but say it's only because their rout of the Iranians was so complete they can afford to take up new battle positions. The government's plans for a new Northern Ireland Assembly have brought another gesture of protest from within the Conservative Party. The MP for Wolverhampton South West, Mr Nick Budgeon, has announced his resignation as a government whip. He He says he believes the Assembly bill will create further instability in the province. The anniversary of the death of Bobby Sands was marked in London by a march led by Owen Carron, who succeeded Sands as MP for Fermanagh and South Tyrone. Bobby Sands was the first of 10 hunger strikers to die during last year's protest in the Maze prison. Police say between 2,000 and 3,000 people joined the march, and they arrested 27 for minor offences. The Canadian racing driver Gilles Villeneuve died tonight in hospital after crashing during practice for tomorrow's Belgian Grand Prix. Here's Michael Blakey.
The crash was a horrifying one, which happened at one of the fastest stretches of the Grand Prix track at Zolder. Villeneuve, who was 30 and among the world's top drivers, is thought to have been travelling to about 170 miles an hour when his car, the red one, clipped the back of the car driven by Jochen Mass. The car somersaulted into the air and broke up on hitting the ground. Villeneuve was hurled about 20 yards into crash fencing. Medical teams were on the spot within seconds to give emergency treatment and the kiss of life. He was taken to hospital with severe head and neck injuries but died later. Villeneuve's spectacular and determined style of driving made him a favourite with the fans. Although never world champion, he won 6 Grand Prix races during his career. The Indian batsman Dilip Vengsarkar made a solid 72 when the tourists began their first-class programme against Warwickshire. From 174 for 2, the Indians collapsed to 243 all out. Warwickshire was 68 for 3 at stumps. The Benson and Hedges competition provided a close finish at Bristol. Gloucestershire got home by just 4 runs. Kent won by 19 runs. Lancashire beat Scotland by 10 wickets. Colin Croft took 6 for 10. Balderson scored 89 to help Leicestershire win by 5 wickets. Alan Lamb made the day's top score of 95 but couldn't save Northants. Somerset wicketkeeper Derek Taylor took 8 catches. His side won by 8 wickets. Surrey won by 85 runs and Worcestershire won with just 1 over to spare. One of snooker's men in form, Willie Thorne, tonight completed another victory in the Embassy World Professional Championship at Sheffield. He beat John Spencer 13-5, a performance that included a break of 122, the highest of the finals so far. Success too for Ray Reardon, 6 times world champion. He also got through to the quarter-finals with a 13-8 victory over John Virgo. Young Norman Whiteside of Manchester United had his 17th birthday yesterday, and today he was given the best possible present. He's been included in Northern Ireland's squad of 40 players for the World Cup finals in Spain next month. Richard Duckinfield reports on the youngster in the number 9 shirt.
It may be Spain in June, but today it was back to less glamorous football in the reserves against Stoke City's second team. Norman's call-up has come just a fortnight after his debut with the United first team and in his first season in professional football after leaving school in Belfast. His talents have earned him the description as the most exciting Irish discovery since George Best. But how will he secure a place in that World Cup team?
Well, obviously working my hardest, and trying to score a few goals for the reserves.
Football officials from Northern Ireland and Britain's 2 other World Cup qualifiers, England and Scotland, are to have talks next week with the sports minister. They'll be discussing the implications of going to Spain in the light of the Falklands crisis. But one team definitely not pulling out is Argentina. Officials in Buenos Aires insist they'll take part. And this week the Argentine squad continue their preparations with an international against Bulgaria. Christopher Morris describes the atmosphere at the game.
This explosion of patriotism was to show Argentina will not pull out of the World Cup. Sport and politics have already been mixed here. The welcome was ecstatic for the band of the Argentine Navy now confronting the British fleet. For Ardiles, it's already become a nightmare. By leaving Spurs to play for his country, he's forfeited a Wembley Cup final medal.
But are they getting anywhere? Mrs. Thatcher warns there must be no peaceful sellout. And President Galtieri says